I'm getting to be an expert on
Meanings are derived from a combination of recognition and understanding. Meanings are non-existent in a wholly sensory or material world. Meanings and values are wholly perceived in the inner.
what was
What
that?
the heck was that?
Wow. I think it's reading something for you.
Well, that's weird. Okay.
That was
Hello,
me.
everyone.
I was experimenting.
Oh, okay.
Trust you, Gary.
Gary.
Well, hello, everybody. This is
Gary.
Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue with our study of paper 111, The Adjuster and the Soul, and we're in section 4. That's paper 111, section 4, paragraph 1, and that starts on page 1219.7 of the original book. So let's say a little prayer and we will get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight. We thank you for the opportunity to share this wonderful revelation. We thank you for all of our many blessings. We thank you for our thought adjuster and you being present with us all the time. We thank you for the sacrifice of our son Michael and coming to this world and showing us the way and showing us how to be closer to you. And we thank you for our many, many blessings. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen. 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 And for y'all that are just joining us tonight, if you don't know, I have been recording the Urantia book on Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo, all three, in a format that you just sit and watch the book. I don't speak all the way through all these videos, and we're going to try to do the entire life of Christ. And it's read by a guy named Merritt Horn that did it many years ago. And Merritt Horn was who I sit and listen to, gosh, for years and years and years and years, read the book.
Perfect.
And it's because of Merritt Horn's effort that I feel like I got to know the book so well. So I just took his reading, went through the paper and let him read the entire paper. And each one of the papers don't take but about 30 minutes to get through an entire paper. So it's a great way to study the book. If you haven't done that before, you can start on the Last Supper, and we're going to go all the way to the end of the book. And then when I finish, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the life of Christ and fill in the papers up to the Last Supper too. So it'll all be out there sooner or later for you to watch and enjoy. So I want to let you know it's out there. You can look for it on Facebook, YouTube, or Vimeo, any three. And you won't hear me say a word in any of these. So you don't have to listen to me.
Right? Hey, Roger. Hey, Roger.
Yeah.
When you said you were listening to Merritt, did you
Yes.
hear those on video cassette tape back in the day?
Yes,
Oh,
I did.
wow.
Actually, it was back before you could buy them, Tim. And what I did was I took the book on the computer and burnt them to CDs myself. You couldn't buy them back then. So I burned them to CDs for myself, one section at a time, and sit and listen the entire book going back and forth to work. I was still practicing back there. So I'd listen to them on the way to work and in between patients and stuff. And when you listen to Merritt read, he reads so well.
He does. It's
And,
perfect.
I always say it almost sounds like God's talking to you. So when I hear things in my head, when I'm thinking about a paper, I hear Merritt Horn reading to me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so he does a great job, a lot better than I could ever read it. I can tell you that. He has great pronunciation, which I don't. So, we all have our talents, right? That's not one of mine. Okay, the inner life. Y'all, I want to share something with you before I start this tonight. In paper, on the paper in the life of Christ, it's called in Gethsemane. It's when Jesus was in Gethsemane and he was praying to God about the cup passing him. Do y'all remember that particular passages? Well,
yes.
I realized while I was listening to this, I had to listen to it 3 times because I kept having trouble recording it that day. So about the 3rd time through, and I listened to Jesus praying the 3 different times, it dawned on me how close that particular passages is to these papers we have been studying on the thought adjuster. And think of it this way. Every time Jesus prayed, what did he say? He said, not my will, Father, but your will be done. And his entire message to us was to teach us how to love God the Father, how to try to communicate with God the Father and do his will, and how to love one another, right? That was his mission. And that is a perfect example how his entire life, everything he did in his bestowal, he did according to the will of God the Father. Now, interesting part is this. This is what dawned on me as I was listening to this the third time. It dawned on me that Jesus' thought adjuster left him when he was baptized. Y'all remember that? And his thought adjuster became a personalized thought adjuster, right? So the thought adjuster he had with him up to that point, up to when he got baptized, all that stuff that the thought adjuster did and put into his soul was finished at that point, right? Think of it that way. And the thought adjuster separated from him and was personalized by God the Father himself. So the experience of Jesus was in the personalized thought adjuster. But an interesting point is this. His experiences and that which he was building the soul with continued on. Do y'all realize that? So when Jesus was in Gethsemane and he was talking to God the Father, he was not talking to his father fragment any longer, was he?
No,
He's talking directly to him.
directly to
He was
the
talking
Father.
directly to the Father. And he still had the same exact attitude as he did when he had the thought adjuster with him, right? To always do the will of the Father. So you see the connection between Jesus, the Son of God, or the Creator Son, and the Father himself. And what's interesting is this. They talk many times in the Bible about Jesus being God incarnate. Do y'all remember that? Okay. The important point of that is this. Jesus not only had his own personality and all the things he was doing as a creator son, but he was revealing the personality of God directly from God. Do y'all see that? And so this building of the soul
Please.
up to his death was kept going on even after the thought adjuster left, right? And we talked about this, how the soul is a separate entity, how it's building up by what the thought adjuster is putting in it all along your life. Well, think of it this way. They talk about this in the next, I think the next paper, maybe the one after that, how when Jesus died on the cross, he said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And they speculate in the paper that the spirit they're talking about was the soul that Jesus had built up during this entire life. And that was what Jesus committed to the Father. Okay. Now, another interesting point. I don't want to miss out on this because it's very, very important. Later on, after the resurrection, and he was going through the Morontia life, he did not take him up himself as the creator son. Y'all know that, don't you? Right? At that point, during the resurrection, he was a Morontia being. So he was not Michael yet. Right? So it's interesting. Was he still building that soul? Or was that soul used for his Morontia incarnation? I don't know. They don't know. You see what I'm saying?
Roger, isn't this part of that mystery which I had asked you once upon a time?
The mystery of the creator sons.
Of the creator's son and this Jesus who is a person, a human.
Yes, a human.
Whose soul as a human became divine
Right.
through the thought adjuster,
That's right.
who is separate from God, you
Right.
know, the
Except,
creator of the
yeah,
universe.
a brand new soul, just like we
Yeah,
develop. Right.
yeah.
Right.
And
Now,
we talked about that briefly, and I remember you said, well, we don't have a definite of we think like we the revelators may have uh made a mention in somewhere in the book that Jesus will be the lead. I know his thought adjuster has a part.
right. And it's interesting because what the thing that I didn't mention yet, Jane, is this. They speculate in these papers, and you can go back and listen to them yourself. You know, sometimes you miss things, no matter how many times you go through it. But they speculate this soul that we were talking about is the actual being that will be revived as the head of the Finaliters, what you just said.
Yeah, yes, but you mentioned that at that time too when I
Yeah,
questioned. Yeah,
yeah.
you had said what word did you use? Not suggest.
I don't.
Proposed? They proposed or
They propose. Yeah,
they
they
proposed
propose. Yeah, nobody's sure, you know, because this is part of the mystery of
of the
the Creator
incarnation.
Son's.
Yeah.
Yeah, in incarnation too. But they propose that either the personalized thought adjuster or this new soul entity, or maybe both combined, I don't know, will be the head of the finaliters for us when we get to paradise and become finaliters.
Now, just us, the Urantians?
No, all of our local universe, because each creator son has to go through the same process. So the head of the finaliters of this particular local universe would be either the soul entity of Jesus. He would be
Yeah.
Jesus. He wouldn't be Michael. He would
No,
be the
Jesus.
soul entity of Jesus of Nazareth, right? Because that's what it is.
Yes.
Or it would be the thought adjuster, the personalized thought adjuster of Jesus, or the combination of both. You know, anything is possible, you know, because these personalized thought adjusters, we don't know that much about either. You know, these are God entities, right? So, and they can do whatever they want. But it's interesting, though, that they make the point that they think that these soul entities that all the creator sons create as they're doing these bestowals will be the head of the finaliters to when we are ready to go out to the outer space levels and populate the outer space levels.
And
Hey, Roger.
Yeah, and that's how Jesus would be there with us, right?
With us, yeah.
Right. Yeah, Tim.
I don't understand why the personalized adjuster left Jesus. Was it because he was so advanced spiritually?
No, it was because he could not fuse with Jesus. You know, Jesus was a creator son. He was already divinity. Okay, and that's hard for us to conceive. But Jesus, being the creator of our local universe, was already a divine being. Okay, so being a divine being, he did not need a thought adjuster. He only needed a thought adjuster to experience the mortal life. Okay, so when that thought adjuster at basically what happened at the baptism, if he
took
would have,
leave.
yeah, he took leave. And why did he take leave? Because Jesus had gotten to the point where he was ready for adjuster fusion as a human.
Yes.
Wow.
So if any of us got to that point where we were ready to fuse with the adjuster, what would happen to us?
We disappear.
We disappear. We'd be consumed in this heavenly fire, and our body would be consumed, and we'd go on to the mansion worlds, right? Well, they didn't. Jesus did not want that to happen because he wanted to stay around and teach the apostles. He hadn't met any of the apostles. Well, a couple of them he did, but he hadn't got them to be apostles yet. So he wanted to stay around. Wait a minute, y'all. I hope this recorded okay. Okay. Anyway, he wanted to stay around to experience the next 3 or 4 years with the apostles, and he had to stay around to experience death, right? it's the death that he had not finished. Okay. So at his baptism, he had finished everything he was supposed to do, and all power on heaven and earth had been turned over to him at that point.
So he
Okay.
received his adjuster, I think, between 4 or 5, really advanced. And
Yeah.
then by the time of his baptism, the adjuster took leave.
The
He
adjuster
was
took leave. And at that
divinity.
point,
I mean,
yeah, at that point, the adjuster stuck around to give him advice, but he went through the remainder of his life, those next 3-something years, the remainder of his life by himself, just doing the will of God, the Father, as he felt fit to do that. Okay. And it's important for us to know that, because all during his ministry, he did not have the adjuster. The adjuster was always with him, but it did not indwell him any longer. Now, the reason that all this is important is he received all power in heaven on earth, but he did not receive his supreme sovereignty from all the universe until when? Until he died. That's
Yeah.
right. Okay. And
he was
then,
also
and then, even though he had received all of this at death, when he was resurrected, he still chose to go through the Morontia stages so he could experience even the in-between times that we experience between being mortal and becoming a full-fledged spirit being. Does that make sense? You see the importance of all this now? How it all just kind of comes together. So he did the Morontia experience having already received full power, supreme sovereignty in heaven and earth. But an interesting thing is this: he did not reassume his role as Michael, as a Morontia. Okay. And that's important because he could not reassume himself, because he wouldn't have experienced the Morontia experience like a human being does because of his divinity.
so he chose to live as a human, but yet he was divine.
That's right. He chose to live as a human, and then he chose to live as a what? A Morontia being too. He did not take back up his Michael association yet. It wasn't until he finished his full Morontia mission that he took back up his full spiritual self. And when he finished his Morontia mission, he would be what we would call a first stage spirit at that point, right? That's when we would go on to the super universe. But Michael, when he finished his, he didn't have to stand before himself and say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." At that point, he just took back up his own sovereignty as Michael, the personality of Michael. And so at that point, what happens? At that point, all that experience going into his soul, okay, stops, and his soul goes on to wherever it is waiting for the future of everything.
Hey, Roger, when you
Yeah.
say the Morontia existence, are you talking about 119, or are you talking about his resurrection?
No, it's at his resurrection. What was that? Oh, it was at his when he resurrected himself, he came back as a Morontia being. And it's interesting because when we come back as a Morontia being, there's a whole crew of beings that makes that happen, right? And it's interesting because during the I haven't even gotten into this paper yet, but during the paper on the resurrection, it talks about how 7 paradise personalities surrounded the tomb, so that Michael was able to bring himself back to existence. Now, interesting part of this is this: when we die, we are resurrected by the guardian angels, archangels,
Resurrection.
yeah, the resurrection. We have
No.
all these beings that help us be resurrected on the mansion worlds. That's not what happened to Jesus. Okay. Jesus resurrected himself because he is God of our local universe. He is the creator son. So they could not do, it says in the resurrection paper, they could do nothing. There's nothing that any of them could do to bring their own creator son back, because they all got together and discussed it. How do we bring the creator son back? This is God. We can't bring God back,
He said that. He said, I gladly lay it down and I will pick it up.
I will take it back up again.
take
The
it back
Father
up.
has given me this power, right?
What happened to Jesus's body? Did the seraphim disintegrate it?
Yeah, not the seraphim, but the archangel corps asked for the body of Jesus, and then the archangel corps, the transformers were involved, and the midwayers, and what they did is they accelerated the natural aging process instantaneously. So Jesus's body disappeared from age. It disintegrated into what?
Ashes.
Ashes,
Oh, wow.
nothingness, just like it was when we started, right? Just as if me or you went to be cremated, and they cremated our body and the ashes were left, probably something like that was left with Jesus, because he disintegrated instantly. And they did this by accelerating time. They talk about a way of disintegrating a body without having to do that, but with Jesus, they say in there, they accelerated time, and he disappeared in a natural process. The body did. Okay. So when they opened the tomb, when the midwayers rolled the big circle back, right? And the cloths were laying on the shelf, they were exactly where they were when they were wrapped around Jesus. Okay. Just exactly. So if you can imagine, if something's wrapped around somebody and they disintegrate, what would happen to the cloths? They would just drop flat, right? Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And that's what happened. They just dropped flat. So when Mary Magdalene walked in the tomb and she saw the cloths there, she thought somebody stole the master, right? That's what we would think. Anybody would think that. So I've gotten off on the wrong story today, but
This is great, though. This is great.
Unmute, Rodney. I can't hear you. Rodney, I can't hear you.
The cover sheet was folded.
Yes, that's another interesting. Yeah, his face, the sheet they put over his face was folded up and left there.
No,
Yeah.
there was a sheet covering the body.
Yeah, well, the body, it was just the face cover that was folded, Rodney. The sheet itself went flat.
Okay.
Okay, but the face piece that the napkin they put over the face was actually folded up. They set down there. Probably one of the midwayers was being smart.
Then who folded the face piece?
Probably a midwayer.
Midware.
Yeah, because the midwayers can move material matter. That's who rolled the stone away. Right?
Then why wouldn't they leave it collapse like they did the rest of the cloth?
So that whoever came in the tomb would know that the body was not removed. Okay, so if it was collapsed exactly like it was put there, how would you get the body out? You couldn't.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't get the body off, because if they would have taken the cloths down and off, the rumor would have been that he was removed from the tomb. The apostles took him off, and that's what they tried to. They tried to pay off the guards, both the Roman guards and the Jewish guards, and make them tell everybody that he was stolen by the apostles or by his followers, and that's not what happened.
I still don't understand that. Here you are. They collapsed the body, basically. They
Yeah,
speeded up the oxygenation process.
right.
Okay. Now here's Jesus's body. His face is here. His
Yeah,
cloth is right over top of his face. Why not just go? But the midwives took the cloth and made it into a nice napkin. A
yes.
nice square napkin.
Just the one that covered his face. Just
Yeah.
the
Now
one
I
that,
don't understand why. I must be dense. But
well,
why
maybe
would they
there's
do
not
that?
a
I mean, I would
specific,
say
well, maybe
I,
it's not a specific reason why, Gary. Maybe they're trying to be funny, you
I don't
know?
know. It may be because if the cloth is collapsed as it was wrapped around him,
Hmm.
that's proof in itself that he wasn't stolen because
That's
man
right.
can't duplicate that.
No, you couldn't, no matter how you tried, right?
Yeah. So therefore, if you fold the cloth, that adds suspicion to the, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
counterproductive.
yeah,
Well, it looks like Jesus did it.
yeah, it does. It looks like Jesus did it. Let me do this. Can y'all hear Diane okay?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. I just want to make sure. So the whole story is just fascinating. You know, it really is. And right here at I almost said Christmas, at Easter, you know, reading all this stuff and refreshing your memory on it and stuff is just, it's a wonderful thing. And it fits right into this paper we've been talking about, you know, about the thought adjuster and how Jesus spent his entire life doing the will of God. And that's what this paper is all about, right? Doing the will of God. Now it's only 30 minutes into the meeting and I haven't read the first paragraph. So maybe we should read one or two. You think, y'all?
Yeah, we should.
All right, dear, why don't you unmute so they can see your picture?
Okay. For the inner life, recognition is the intellectual process of fitting the sensory impressions received from the external world into the memory patterns of the individual. Understanding connotes that these recognized sensory impressions and their associated memory patterns have become integrated or organized into a dynamic network of principles.
Okay, this is a very fancy way of saying that row, row, row your boat, life is but a dream, right? Because all the things that we sense, feel, that sort of thing in life, the sensory impressions from the world we live in is really just a shadow of the spiritual realities, okay, which is hard to understand. So these sensory impressions or sensory inputs go into what builds what? The soul, okay? And our understanding, our intellectual understanding is recognizing the sensory impressions and memory patterns so that they can be worked into a whole in the soul and a history for your thought adjuster to build a spiritual counterpart of your life. So what would happen if you had no soul? When you woke up on the mansion world, you wouldn't remember anything. Okay.
I don't think you'd wake up.
Huh?
I don't know if you'd wake up.
I don't know that you would either, Rodney, to be
Right.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because all these memories and senses and things like that we develop in our brain and in our mind are useless without a body, right? So the reason we have a body when we get to the mansion world is because that soul is inserted into that new body, and all these impressions and all these things we learn and all these things through life are inside that soul, right? The data, that's right. So what the guardian angel does, the archangel, I mean, does is when they wake you up, he makes sure that all your memories and stuff, which are useless without a body, right? He makes sure he double checks all those memories next to your soul to make sure you are what? Who you were. Okay, because without those memories, who are you? You're nobody. You're a different person. You're a different being. You might be alive because you got a soul, but you have no memory of ever being alive.
Isn't it? Oh, good.
And that's why those who are sun fused have no memory of their past life. Okay, they start out with a soul that's got no memory of anything, because why? They had no thought adjuster to build those spiritual counterparts. Are y'all with me? Did I lose everybody?
No.
Yeah, but go and define sun fused.
A sun fused mortal is someone who fails to fuse with their adjuster for one reason or another. The adjuster doesn't return to the mansion worlds for them for one reason or another. There's a lot of different things that can happen for that to happen. You could be intellectually not capable of fusing with your thought adjuster. So when they wake you up, you have no memory. They give you a brand new soul because you didn't have a thought adjuster. Okay, so they give you what's called a sun fragment, or they can also give you a spirit fragment. If you get a sun fragment, then you become a son of the local universe. You pretty much stay in the local universe. But your guardian angels, while you were alive, have to rehearse every single thing that happened in your life, because there's no thought adjuster to build that spiritual counterpart. You follow me?
Jesus?
What would you say, Rodney?
You think that happened with Jesus' soul?
No, because that's a totally different ball game with Jesus. Yeah.
Hey, Roger.
Yeah.
What about these serial killers that really enjoy hurting other people? They pretty much destroy them because they're not making experiential decisions that are based on true values.
Yeah, that's cosmic insanity, Timothy, and I doubt they would wake up, period.
Correct.
yeah.
Right. When you step into that cosmic insanity, life is not real anymore, right?
Mhm.
That's why they say antisocial people or schizophrenics and things like that may not wake up on the mansion world, because their life is not real. They're not living in a reality, and there's nothing to build upon, right? They don't find anything salvageable for them. So, and it's not cruel or indifferent or anything like that. It's just the way it is. Okay. You can't change things the way they are. They just are. All right. Let's go on. Let's try to get a little bit more of this. Tim, would you take the next one, please?
I can't see the screen to read.
You can't?
No, I can see your faces. Hold on. Let me see if I can't change gallery view, speakers view. Okay, here it is. Yeah. Okay. Meanings are derived from a combination of recognition and understanding. Meanings are non-existent in a wholly sensory or material world. Meanings and values are only perceived in the inner or supermaterial spheres of human experience.
Okay. So what they're saying here is the things that happen in your life, the meanings that happen in your life, are not really real when they're wholly material or wholly sensory. They're not real. Okay, they're experiences, but they're not real. They don't become real until those meanings and values are plugged in to the super material spheres of this human existence. And what are the super material spheres? Y'all remember? That's your Morontia moda. Okay. So the only way that something is meaningful in your life is if it's good enough to be plugged into your super material sphere of the Morontia moda, which goes into your soul. That makes sense?
So that's the Morontia wisdom. Morontia moda is Morontia wisdom.
Morontia wisdom, and we start building it on this planet. That's how it works. Okay. We won't use it until we get to the mansion worlds, though, however, right? Y'all remember that? So what does that mean about this material world? It means it's meaningless unless it has something to do with what?
Values.
Values, spirit values, meanings and values. Okay. Okay. Heavy stuff, isn't it? Kind of hard to understand. All right. Jane, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. The advances of true civilization are all born in this inner world of mankind. It is only the inner life that is truly creative. Civilization can hardly progress when the majority of the youth of any generation devote their interests and energies to the materialistic pursuits of the sensory or outer world.
Okay. What's this telling us? It's telling us that young people that are just going for sensory input, okay, what would that be? Sex, music,
Materialism.
drinking, materialism, that sort of thing. If their entire life is just about that, and they have no cognitive resing help me, dear. I'm losing my mind. If they have no way of realizing that spiritual things and the spiritual world is the real world, and the rest of these things are just passing through your life and disappear with this life. So if they have no concept of philosophy, religion,
A relationship with God.
relationship with God, relationships with other people, and how they all fit into a spiritual organized life, then they're lost. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Do you know that the atheists now have somewhat of a church setting? It's not really a church, but I've seen it on YouTube. It's just like a community, but they're leaving God out, and we know that that's not true at all. If you take God out of the equation, you don't have true values. But
you know what my favorite statement about that is?
what's that?
Tim, you can't fix what?
Stupid.
What's broken?
No, stupid. You can't fix stupid.
I'm a handyman, sorry.
That's all I have to say.
I didn't hear that part. What was it, Roger?
You can't fix stupid.
Okay,
You know,
that's good.
It's kind of funny. I was watching The Five the other night, and Judge Janine, right in the middle of it, said, well, you know what that is? And they said, no, what? And they said, you can't fix stupid. I was shocked to hear her say it. So anyway. Okay, let's keep going. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Yes, the inner and the outer worlds have a different set of values. Any civilization is in jeopardy when 3/4 of its youth enter materialistic professions and devote themselves to the pursuit of the sensory activities of the outer world. Civilization is in danger when youth neglect to interest themselves in ethics, sociology, eugenics, philosophy, the fine arts, religion, and cosmology.
Okay, I need to make something clear about what they're talking about here, and that is this.
It's not
When
racism, right?
No, I'm not talking about, eugenics it's talking about is help planning the future for your children. It's not the eugenics they're talking about that Hitler did. This has got nothing to do with that. But what I want to say here is this. When I said when they devote themselves to things like music and things like that, there's nothing wrong with that as long as there's a spiritual aspect to it. You know, so if you want to go into music and you want to sing and dance and play guitars or whatever you want to do, that's just fine. But you need a spiritual side of your existence. That's the point I want to make here, right? And that's what they're saying here, that when 3/4 of the youth have no interest in things like sociology, eugenics, philosophy, art, religion, or cosmology, then they're not living in the real world, are they? They're living in the materialistic world of this planet. And what happens to that? It all passes away sooner or later, right? So the young people needs to interest themselves into things that are going to be lasting and benefit their future. Jesus said it like this. He said, don't build your house in this world, did he? That's what he meant. Don't build up your life, your intelligence, everything you have going on in your life about this world, because this world is going away, right? When you go into the mansion worlds, it don't mean anything. So build up your life about things that will benefit you in the mansion worlds, right? Does that make sense? And that's exactly what they're talking about here.
Sir, the word eugenics, the repertoires isn't referring to racial superiority, but to
No, they're talking about planning for your children, trying to plan using your DNA to get rid of disease and pestilence and things like that, planning your families, things like that. That's eugenics. Eugenics is good. There's nothing wrong with eugenics. What Hitler tried to do, he tried to take eugenics and manipulate it to have a superior race, which does not exist. Okay.
right.
So that's the big
So-
difference.
Well, and the
so
sad
you're
thing
just-
about that is that he was destroying those with superior qualities because they were a threat to him.
That's right. And it was the Jews that he was using to
Yeah.
do these
Or
experiments.
anybody that interfered. It wasn't only
Yes.
the Jews.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many Christians died.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes all the way across the
Are
board.
you talking about like finding the right mate, or I mean like when
No, it's not only finding the right mate. They're actually talking about Adam and Eve should have taught us how to manipulate our own future through our DNA. It's just exactly what Adam and Eve was doing when they came to their planet. Their mission was to have 1 million children, and then those 1 million children were to go out and marry with all the races so that their superior DNA and their blood would be mixed with all the races, which would improve all the races. You could call it DNA manipulation. You know, on Ancient Aliens, they talk about in 37,000 years ago, we had this
change in brain structure?
change in DNA, which affected everybody. And that's exactly true.
Mhm.
It did, but it was Adam and Eve who did this. Okay.
Right.
It wasn't aliens, unless you want to call Adam and Eve aliens. And in a way, they sort of were. So,
Yeah, you can.
yeah, you can call them aliens if you wanted to, you know, because they weren't from this planet. They were brought down from Jerusalem, right?
They didn't look like us. either.
Right. Okay. Or Adentia. Is it
Adentia, yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to change the book, rewrite the book. Don't let me do it, y'all. Y'all got to catch me on those things, you know? Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Rodney, did you just read? Yeah, you did. Okay. Gary, would you take the next one?
Okay, only in the higher levels of the superconscious mind, as it impinges upon the spirit realm of human experience, can you find those higher concepts in association with effective master patterns, which will contribute to the building of a better and more enduring civilization. Personality is inherently creative, but it is thus functions only in the inner life of the individual.
It's the superconscious, right? It's not the conscious mind. And what does the superconscious mind communicate with? The thought, a gesture, and the soul, right? So these higher concepts, these higher master patterns, how to pattern the world after paradise, all these creative things come from the inner life, which is part of the super conscious mind. And if you study long enough and you work long enough, while you're sleeping, sometimes those little patterns of the super conscious do what? They bleed into the conscious mind, right? So when you wake up in the next morning and you go, oh yeah, I know what I could do. I could do such and such. And you think, man, I'm a genius. You're really not a genius. It's your superconscious talking to you, right? You
So
know,
when you say that it's the thought adjuster, is it also the 7 adjutant mind spirits or the Holy Spirit?
all these are involved, every single
Okay,
one of them. Yeah.
great. Yeah, perfect.
All of the above, right? All right. This is the interesting quote on the next one too. Pam, I think you're up next.
Snow crystals are always hexagonal in form, but no two are ever alike. Children can form two types, but no two are exactly alike. Even in the case of twins, personality follows types, but is always unique.
So what's this telling us? That means that just like snowflakes, we might be coming from the same patterns, but each and every being is totally unique.
Mm.
Okay. So if you're
Our
a twin,
fingerprints.
like fingerprints, yeah, if you're a twin or you're a triplet or quadruplet, whatever, you're unique. It doesn't matter if you look just like your brothers or sisters, does it? But you're a unique individual, and that's no excuse to say, well, I'm just like my brother. I'm going to be bad just like my brother. That doesn't work that way, right? Because you're a unique individual. You have your own pathway. Okay. Go back up there.
Happiness and joy take origin in the inner life. You cannot experience real joy all by yourself. The solitary life is fatal to happiness. Even families and nations will enjoy life more if they share it with others.
I had a question, Roger.
So do I.
I was just wondering, what do you think about nuns? I mean, it's almost as if it's great that they dedicate their lives to God, but I mean, you've got to be brave to live in this world, and you just can't cower away in isolation.
Oh,
I'll answer that
yeah.
for you. She was a nun.
I was a nun for a while, and
Oh my gosh.
when I was very young, very young.
Wow.
It's a special calling, and you have to see if you blend into the particular area that you end up in, the mother house. And it's very personal. And some people survive and others don't. They go on to study other things. So, but it's a wonderful calling.
Did you ever
I'm
feel
sorry?
isolated? Isolated, Diane, or?
No, because I only was in there for less than a year. And so I met a lot of friends and people that I love, that I really loved, nuns and a few priests. But I found that there were so many idiosyncrasies in it that it was just inferior. It wasn't a complete experience. You know, it was very isolated. And there was also a lot of consistency with priests being more involved than the nuns. And there was you know, kind of a I don't know. The nuns were very aware of that, and they weren't even getting their money when they get paid. It would go directly to the church, but the priest would get their money, and you know, there was a lot of discrepancy, I guess I'd say.
It's
And
sort
I
of like
met-
kick the women out, right? It's sort of like kick the women out and just
Well, it
elevate
was
the men.
it's more along the line of Paul's philosophy.
Yeah.
You know, that women were not equal with men, and Jesus did not teach
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jane.
I am going to interject here to answer Timothy's question, because my sister was a nun for 55 years. And I was raised mostly by them because I was orphaned very young. I had no mother for a very young age. So it all depends geographically where you're located, and it all depends on the order you enter. There are so many different orders.
I could see that.
Yeah. And all I can say is this, like, they all have different missions, a different intention, objective of what they are to fulfill in their clerical life, or whatever you want to call it, non-secular life. But all I want to say to Tim is they have all the challenges that a parent would have, but they don't know it's the same. They are challenged to live the life for which they make a promise to live, because the conflicts exist there. There are still politics, there are still maintenance
Definitely, definitely.
effects, there is still so many things that, you know, and the only ones that may be isolated and would have to be definitely devoted to only God, single-minded that way, they would be like the hermits, and they're called cloistered nuns. In other words, they cannot even talk to each other. There are orders like that.
And we know that's not good,
They
right?
eat in silence. They only live to pray and meditate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
it
have
depends.
no relationship with
definitely-
each other.
It definitely depends on which order you're in. I was in a
Yeah.
Dominican
Yeah.
order, which was a teaching order.
Oh,
And
well,
all I
they're
can
usually
say
lovely.
about all I can say about all of it is it wasn't the intention of Jesus to ever set this up this way, right?
No,
Because
no.
he came
no.
to get rid of the priesthoods, right? And then he came to make the women free and make them equal with men. And then what happens? The church comes along and puts them as second-class citizens again.
True,
right?
but
Yeah.
that got perverted over the years. It
Yes.
wasn't like that in Jesus' time.
No,
And
it
was
was
not like
after
that
the
during the apostles' time. But with time, power,
Mhm.
what's that word? Corrupts.
corruption
Absolutely.
sets in. That's right. And
Yeah.
it was over 300 something years before the Bible was even put
That's
together.
what I
You
mean.
know,
So
after
anyway, that's
yeah,
off
so
track. Thank you.
it's a lot involved in it. So
Yeah.
anyway, it'll eventually get it straightened out. You know, I really believe that.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see who's up to read.
I just
Oh,
finished that.
did you just read this, dear? You
Yeah.
cannot completely control the experiment. Okay. So it is out of your purview to control everything of the external world. That's right. Right. We can see that what goes on TV every night. But it is within your purview to control the inner world, right? It's the most subject to your direction and your personality. So it says here that it's liberated from the fetters of laws of antecedent causation. Y'all see that? What is that?
Good question.
Could that be accidents in terms of environment?
You hit it on the head, Tim. It's just things that happen without any rhyme or reason. Okay. Happens to all of us, right? But the things outside that is limited by our sovereignty of will. In other words, we have a will to change everything around us except the accidents of time that happen to each and every one of us, right? And even those accidents of time, we can use the will of God to do what's right, go the right direction, right? So even that cannot keep you from living a God-fearing, will of God life. Okay. All right. Tim, would you take the next one, please?
Since this inner life of man is truly creative, there rests upon each person the responsibility of choosing as to whether this creativity shall be spontaneous and wholly haphazard, or controlled, directed, and constructive. How can a creative imagination produce worthy children when the stage whereon it functions is already occupied by prejudice, hate, fears, resentments, revenge, and bigotries?
So it's telling us right off the bat that this inner life allows us to make decisions. And by making these decisions and making the proper decisions, you won't pass on to your children these things that you have learned, probably from your parents or people around you.
Yep.
And they are what? Prejudice, hate, fears, resentment, revenge, and bigotries. Those things need to be wiped out of your consciousness, okay? Wiped out of your life. so that you can live a holy will of God life. That's the only way to say it. If you're going to live a life that's dedicated to the will of God, those things like hate, fear, resentment, and prejudice should not be there, period.
They'll
Okay?
be removed in the mansion world.
They'll definitely be removed in the mansion world. These are the things they call what, Rodney? Remember? The mark of what?
The beast.
That's right. The mark of the beast. And you don't get
Animal
rid of
traits.
animal traits, and you don't get rid of all of them until you get to that seventh mansion world, right? So it takes a lot of work to get rid of these things. And we can start on that work today, right? In this life, you know, changing thought. Okay, that's all it is. Okay, we're at 6:57, so we're out of time. I didn't get very far today, did I?
Okay.
Hey, we had a good time. That was great.
Yes, we did.
That was
Okay.
wonderful.
I just wanted to share that stuff from the life of Christ with y'all, because as I go through this stuff, sometimes I see things and I think, well, I need to teach this all over again. I don't need to teach it. Y'all need to read it. And that's all there is to it, you know? So anyway, let's have a little prayer and we will quit for tonight. Pam, would you like to close us in prayer tonight?
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity of us coming together and to sharing, and for Roger to be able to broadcast this throughout the internet. And we are very grateful for the abundant information that is so important for us to be able to grasp, and that will apply more so in the Morontia state as we go on. We ask that you help us to be able to share with others, and we thank you. So in the name of Christ Michael, amen.
Amen. And
Amen. Yeah,
And
well
thank you
said,
all
Pamela.
at home for joining us. And please come see us again. Sometimes I get farther through the paper than I did tonight. But,
You
got
had some
preaching-
important
I got
important
preaching early.
information, Roger.
That's
Important
right.
information.
Got preaching early, didn't I?
Yeah.
So, all right. I love you guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention how much I enjoyed listening to those papers. I got through all of them
Oh,
that
did
you
get
posted.
all of them?
I was through
Pam?
187.
189.
Wow.
I think
89.
I got it
I
through.
haven't
I
seen
did-
that one yet.
Well, I got through 2 today. And
Okay.
the reason I'm doing, sometimes I do 2, is because I'm really having issues recording this, because it's different than when we do the meetings online. It's totally different because I'm not saying anything, so I don't want my face up there all the time. So I have to manipulate all these things to get it to record just the paper, you know,
Yeah.
and just the voice of Merritt Horn. So it's a little bit different. And fortunately, I've had to listen to almost every paper 2 or 3 times, so I'm learning too. Forced learning, as they say. So anyway, y'all, Gary, you got your hand up. Did you have something to say before we leave?
Yeah, I got a question.
Sure.
Okay. I was listening to the paper and I'm way behind you all. On I think it was 180, and it was talking about prayer.
Yeah.
Or somehow, and this is the impression I got, that the you pray, if you pray for material goods, for instance, like pray for my sister being cured of cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's not going to happen.
Well, that's
because-
not true, Gary. It may happen.
I mean,
It may, that's a local universe concern. Okay.
okay,
So when you pray for your cure for your sister, it's a material thing. It's got changes have to be made materially in her, right? And those are under the purview of the local universe, Mother Spirit, and Michael. So those kind of prayers only go to the local universe. Okay. Anything having to do with worship of God the Father goes directly to it skips the local universe and goes directly to God the Father. But if you're praying to Jesus about something, those things stay locally and stay with Jesus. Okay. But that what you're talking about right there, praying for someone else to be healed or anything like that, that's a local universe, material, physical thing. And it's okay to pray for those sort of things, but those stay locally and they will be handled locally and they will be answered locally. When you pray to something to God the Father, if it's not a local concern, they may wait till you become the full stage spirit before that prayer is answered. Right?
Well, I got the impression that God is, your praying should be to God and spiritually, and it's just not materialistically, because God
That's
is spirit.
that's only if it's worship, Gary. If you're trying to worship, that's true. But it's okay if you pray to the local universe, Mother Spirit, and Jesus both for material things. That's okay if that's what you need. Because those sort of, Jesus taught us to pray about everything. That's why we bless our food. Used to be when they blessed the food, they would do it because of so much disease and things. They didn't know about bacteria and all these other things that could kill you from just eating things. So they would bless the food with like a superstition to try to keep from being poisoned. Okay. And that's okay. I don't want to discourage y'all from praying for material things if you need to pray for that. But if you want to worship, that's a function. That's a higher function than just prayer. That's why when you start to worship God, when you pray to worship God and give homage to Jesus or God, either one, that's considered worship. That's the difference between worship and prayer. You can pray during your worship, but only the part that's worship, God the Father, will go to God the Father. The others will stay in the local universe, right?
There's a quote in the
So
Urantia book, Gary, that says, "Do not be so slothful to ask God the desires of your heart."
Yeah.
well, I want a Maserati, but that won't happen, will it?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Well, we can get you the mini version, the Hot Wheel version, if you want that. Will
Gary,
that do?
I wouldn't put up a key hanging thing yet for it if I was you. All right. Listen, I got to get out of here so that I can stop this video.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
We'll
so
see you
much.
all. Thank
Good
you.
All
night.
right. Y'all take care.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Good night.
Stop this one.